Hello and welcome to Sunflower Philosophy Tarot. My name is Juliana, and today we have a timeless collective reading that is going to tap into a specific collective group that I've obviously already pulled cards for, and so maybe from the thumbnail or the video title you have an idea of what this is about, assuming that's why you clicked on it. But before we get into the reading itself, I do want to do a brief centering exercise, as I normally do in my pick a card readings, which just is a little meditation to help you get centered and help you get in touch with your intuition. So if you want to skip ahead, you can totally do that. I'll have the timestamps of when the reading begins linked in the description box below, so you can just navigate there to skip this. Also, I want to say, before I go any further, if you do like what you see here and you are interested in a personal reading, we do offer those on sunflowerphilosophy.com, link in the description, so you can check that out. And any of the other services that we do as well. My mom and I both work together, and we are certified consulting hypnotists as well as tarot readers. So without further ado, though, let's get into the brief centering exercise for today. So if you're joining me for this, I ask first that you are not driving or doing anything that requires your attention. And if you are ready, then feel free to get yourself comfortable. You can pause the video if you need more time to just get into a comfortable position. Make sure that you're not going to be disturbed for the next few minutes. And when you're ready, now that you are comfortable, you may close your eyes and turn your attention to your breathing. And you can just observe it, notice it, and begin to imagine that you are inhaling deep relaxation and peace throughout your whole body as you breathe in. And as you exhale, you release any tension from your body and you release anything that is no longer serving you. And you can use your inhale and exhale now to set an intention for this centering exercise, maybe even for this reading, around what it is that you are bringing into your life and what it is that you are letting go of. And you can trust your intentions. You can trust your intuition. You are a very powerful individual. And when you take the time to do a simple meditation, centering exercise, or what have you, you are honing your ability to be in touch with your most authentic self, to be in touch with that which is truly meant for you, and to remind yourself that you can trust your intuition and that you, at a deeper level, know what is right for you, you know what is aligned with you, and you know who you are. And when you give your system a chance to settle, as you are doing right now, allowing your nervous system to return to a baseline, to relax down into presence, it becomes easier and easier every time you intend to relax to do so. And you know that you always have access to a calmer, more present state of mind, no matter where you are or what is going on in your life. If you need to take a moment to be with yourself, it simply gets easier and easier each and every time you tune in, each and every time you make the choice to be present, to listen to your breathing, to meditate. You find it easier and easier to sink into relaxation and sink into more focused intention for each and every moment. And in this moment, you are present. You are ready to receive messages that align you with your highest good. You are ready to allow anything that is not aligned with you to simply pass you by and reach the people for whom it is aligned. And you're ready to trust yourself, to know that at the end of the day, you have so much power, so much more than you even realize. And with each and every day, each and every moment, you realize your power more and more, and you're ready to step into it at an even deeper level. You are a wonderful human being, a wonderful being of any kind, and you are welcome to take or leave any messages that come up in this reading, depending on whether they align with you, your story, and where you're meant to be. Thank you for being here in this place and time. Know that you are very loved, that you are exactly where you need to be, that you are exactly who you're meant to be, and that in this very moment, you are safe and you are absolutely perfect. Thank you for joining me for this brief centering exercise. And if you would like to continue relaxing in meditation for a bit longer, feel free to do so. But if you are ready to move on to the reading for today, then hang out and we'll get right into it in just a moment. Thank you for joining me for the brief centering exercise if you did, and if you did not, also thank you for being here. Either way, I'm happy to have you. And as I mentioned in the intro, this is a collective message, so we're tapping into a particular collective today. Obviously, I already have cards drawn, and I made some notes about the collective that we're tapping into, so we're just going to get right into today's message. And if you're part of this collective, then there should be things here that resonate with you and where you're at on your journey right now. So let's just get into it. So first things first, I did draw 2 cards that have quotes from All About Love by Bell Hooks, which is a really good book. I feel like it's gotten like a lot more traction recently. I'm not sure who exactly is responsible for that, but you may or may not have read it or at least heard of it. But if you haven't read it, I would highly recommend it. I feel like there's a lot of really valuable wisdom in there. And a couple quotes here out of context is not the fullest experience you could have with that work. So, but yes, in this case, I am using quotes from that book to fuel this message and help me tap into the energy of this group, because that's what I felt called to do when I was sitting down to do this reading. So I'm going to read these quotes first. They're a bit long, but hang in there, and we're going to get into it. So the first quote says, "While it is important for us to understand the origins of fragile self-esteem, it is also possible to bypass this stage, identifying when and where we received negative socialization, and still create a foundation of self-love. Individuals who bypass this stage tend to move on to the next stage, which is actively introducing into our lives constructive, life-affirming thought patterns and behaviors. Whether a person remembers the details of being abused is not important. When the consequence of that abuse is a feeling of worthlessness, they can still engage in a process of self-recovery by finding ways to affirm self-worth." Again, this is from All About Love by Bell Hooks. And this is the gist of this quote is about not needing in every circumstance to always rehash or fully understand where certain negative patterns came from. Patterns especially surrounding lack of self-worth and self-love, which is really what this section of the book is about, the section that this quote is from. Because people can think that in order to heal and move on, you need to fully and deeply explore and understand where these patterns of low self-esteem and self-worth came from. But Bell Hooks is saying in this quote that that's not necessary, that you can still heal and grow more self-love as long as you just understand that you have these patterns of negative self-worth and lack of self-love, and you understand that it's important and valuable to cultivate patterns that counteract that. And so you don't have to rehash or deeply go into what actually caused it in the first place. If you feel like you're ready to move on, to move forward, and to focus on the constructive part of the process where you're constructing a new sense of self-worth and increasing your sense of self-love and breaking old patterns, then you don't need to go back and understand where it came from initially. And I feel like this is something that this collective is ready to do in some way, whether it's directly around self-love and self-worth, or if it's about something in a more general sense. I feel like there's an overwhelming feeling that this group is shifting from a more past-focused mentality to a more present and future-focused mentality, where maybe some of you here, maybe you are one of those people who's bypassing that initial step, right? You are sick of trying to figure out what happened to cause you to have some kind of lack of self-worth or lower self-esteem, or to cause you to have some kind of negative pattern that you're looking to change. And maybe you're just like, that's it, I'm just done with this, I'm not going to focus on it anymore, I want to move on, I want to build something more constructive for myself. So that's quite possible. But I also feel like there's a lot of you here who perhaps have gone through a period of time where you really did dig into the past. You dug into the origins of certain feelings and patterns that you had. You've done some work understanding that. And at this point, you're moving into a stage where you are simply ready to move on and move into the next stage where you're much more focused on building what comes after that, on disconnecting a bit from your past identities and past patterns and building a new one for yourself. I feel like we're really moving into a building stage, whatever group I'm talking to here, that requires you to disconnect a bit with past identities because you are forging a new one. And I feel like for a lot of you, you almost feel like you're in between worlds right now. And let me read this second quote here. We have, individuals who choose to love can and do alter our lives in ways that honor the primary of a love ethic. We do this by choosing to work with individuals we admire and respect, by committing to give our all to relationships, by embracing a global vision where we see ourselves and our fate as intimately connected to those of everyone on our planet. So, yes, this also factors into that idea of being very future focused, having a vision and acting in accordance with that vision of your present and future that you want to create. What I feel like is happening for this group is a releasing of a conditional mindset wherein you might have felt like you needed the world to change or people around you to change or circumstances to change in order for you to be the person that you want to be. And you're releasing that and moving into a stage and a phase where you are taking responsibility for your own self in a very empowering way. Not that you weren't before, but in a new way. I feel like you're stepping up to feel even more empowered to make your own world, your own life in the way that you see fit without waiting for the world to catch up. That's the feeling that I'm getting. It's almost like when you were in a more past focused state, or even if you weren't quite like analyzing your past or anything like that, or digging into things that cause you to have negative patterns, maybe you still felt this kind of helplessness at the environment that you were in or the world around you in general, feeling like, I want to be this kind of person. I want to uphold certain values. I want to be more action oriented, or I want to be in charge of my own life, or feel like I want to be a badass. I want to be like someone who has it all together, but feeling like you're in an environment that just does not allow you to do that. And honestly, that's a place I feel like probably almost everyone in the world can relate to on some level, whether they feel like they're still there, they're stuck there, or they feel that way every so often, or they feel like they used to be there. And it can be very difficult to break free from that because we're kind of taught from an early age that we're dependent on everything and everyone around us. And it's in part natural because as a child you kind of are. But you're also kind of taught that you are. And that sort of continues growing up. You know, we move from being reliant on our parents to being reliant on systems outside of ourselves, and being taught that there are certain people and organizations that have our best interests at heart even when they don't, and also that we have to rely on those systems no matter what to live our lives when they don't always act in ways that are conducive to us living our lives, right? And so there's this feeling of independence that you are now claiming as you step into this new chapter there was a sense of understanding in the past where certain patterns and thoughts came from. And now there's a sense of breaking free from that and saying, well, fuck it, regardless, regardless of what I've been taught to believe about my life and my reality, I'm still going to stick to my vision. I'm going to be that person anyway, even if it's difficult, even if it takes time for me to believe that it's actually possible. I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to do it. So, for example, if you're taught that, and most of us are, I feel, that you're living in a world of scarcity where you have to sacrifice your beliefs and morals in order to have enough money or resources to live, you are saying, well, screw that. I'm going to find a way to do both. I'm going to find a way to be the person I want to be and also have enough money and resources to take care of myself. Or if you are taught that you'll never be enough without a relationship, say, this is something that especially I feel like women, but everyone to some degree in certain societies, is kind of conditioned to believe that you have to have a romantic relationship, a marriage partner by a certain age, and that makes you, it can also be a very material advantage in some ways, but also there's the emotional component of feeling like, oh, well, I've had all this messaging that I'm not worthy, I'm not complete, I'm not whole until I have another person in my life in that capacity. And perhaps there's a breaking free on that level as well of realizing, no, that's not going to complete you. You're already whole the way you are, and you can be successful and happy and fulfilled whether you have a partner like that in your life or not. And you're stepping into that. There's a lot of faith here. There's a lot of, you might not fully believe that the vision that you have for the world can be true, but you're going to live in accordance with that vision anyway and see what happens, because you're done holding on to the past, holding on to blame, holding on to putting your power in someone else's hands, in the hands of something outside of you to make you feel better about things. And you are stepping into a phase where you're just like, that's in my hands and I'm going to do it. And I'm just going to decide in this moment that that is my reality. That's my truth. And the collective that I'm getting here also, I'm feeling like you guys have been working at this or something for a long time. There's a lot of patience here. There's a lot of slow progress, a lot of slow and steady work that's gone into, I feel for a lot of you, your self-work, your self-esteem, your self-love. I do feel for a lot of you, you're leveling up in your sense of self-worth and self-esteem, but this has come from a lot of groundwork that's been laid before this. So while for some of you it might feel like you're experiencing a certain level of self-worth or esteem for the first time, and it seems like it's a bit sudden, or like I said, you're kind of in an in-between phase where some days you feel really good and some days you slip back into old patterns, but you feel yourself much more leaning towards this like future version of yourself that you've always envisioned of where you're confident, you're at ease, and life comes more naturally to you. And I feel like this is happening faster now. Things are speeding up for you. This is coming into your life much more quickly than it used to, and it might almost feel like some of you might feel like you have taken too long to get here, or you've wasted some of your time, or things are starting to come more easily to you now, and you're like, wow, why didn't I understand this in the past? Or why was this so hard for me a few years ago? And this is letting you know that you have been working on this for a long time, and it's just that, like, it's one of those things where you've put in enough work that you've reached the tipping point. And so everything that you've done, all the effort you've put in, all of the times that you have made different decisions and chosen to release old habits or patterns, those all meant a great deal. And that all contributed to where you're at in this moment. So don't discount that. Don't discount those experiences. This is the kind of thing that takes time, but I feel like it takes time because you put in a lot of effort. You put in a lot of work, and the results of that needed time to take root, needed time to come through, and now it's coming through, and it's speeding up. You are going to find, and you probably already are finding, and maybe this is a bit disorienting for you. I am getting the sense that this is a bit disorienting for a lot of you here, that things are changing more quickly than you've expected, and so you're kind of like, wait, your brain's a little bit confused. You're like, wait, okay, I'm behaving in ways that are unexpected even to me because I didn't realize how much growth had taken place, and like, it's like the feeling of someone who maybe you've been like in a hermit mode for a little while, and then you go back out into the world and you go to a social gathering and you end up being much more relaxed and friendly than you usually would be, and the last time you were at a social gathering was like maybe a year ago, and you're like, wow, I'm such a different person. I didn't expect that, right? And so it feels like the shift happened so quickly, like you're just a different person now, but it's just because you haven't had the opportunity to be that person in this particular setting in a long time, and you've gone through a lot of growth since then, and so you're just more naturally a more confident person. But it feels very sudden, and it's almost confusing because part of your brain remembers your old identity as feeling not confident in social settings, right? And so there's a part of you that feels like I should be acting more timid and scared, but I'm not. Or I should be overthinking this, but I'm not. What is going on here? So it could feel a little disorienting, but it's also just a really good sign that you have shifted into a newer version of yourself. And that's just one specific example, but that doesn't have to be your story in particular. I'm sure you will have your own version of that kind of experience where you have stepped into a situation in which you used to feel one way and now you feel another way, and you almost don't know where it came from. But yet at the same time, you have been putting in some work on your self-esteem, and you know that you have been putting in some work, even if you haven't been like specifically like, I'm gonna have better self-esteem. I feel like something that you've been doing, you made some kind of decision. For some of you, you made a decision to just like let something go. Maybe you made a decision to like think more positively, or maybe you have like a new affirmation practice. There's some kind of practice, or perhaps for some of you, a project that you've been focusing on, or a hobby that you've gotten into that has, in a roundabout way, contributed to your self-worth and self-esteem, and had unexpected and perhaps even unintended consequences, but really good consequences that have helped you build upon this. Something else that's coming through for this collective is that I feel like you are a group who is very learning oriented. You love to learn. You love to dig into new things. Always looking for a new thing to learn. And one thing I feel like is that I feel like for a lot of you, you've spent a lot of time flitting is the word that came through, flitting from one like education pursuit to another. Doesn't have to be formal education. It can just be like, ooh, I want to learn this skill. Oh, I want to learn that craft. Oh, maybe I'll get a degree in this. Oh, maybe I'll just get a certification in that, that kind of thing. Where you are reaching a stage, again, where things are speeding up for you. You might not have as much time to spend on your education because the time has come for you to put your education into use in a more directed and specific way. What that's going to be is obviously going to be different for all of you watching, but that's what's coming through here, is that because I almost feel like, first of all, there's definitely a level to this group where you're just always curious and always learning and very smart and very just driven in that way. But there's also a part of you that may have been very focused on learning and not as focused on putting that learning into action. And while I feel like you actually, this was a very necessary stage for you, like you were building a foundation for yourself with all the different things that you were learning, and there's ways in which all the things that you've learned can synthesize into a skill set that will help you in whatever you're doing right now in your life, whether that's surrounding your career or even just like your social life, whatever it is. I do feel like this was a necessary time for you. I do feel like the things that you learned will go to use and will benefit you. However, I feel like there was also a level of comfort in this stage where you're learning all these things, and perhaps an avoidance of action, an avoidance of actually putting some of these things into practice because you were lacking the confidence to do so. And that's where, again, we have this shift in self-worth and self-esteem, this tipping point that you're experiencing where you're suddenly feeling like, yeah, I can do this. Yeah, I'm just comfortable with that. And part of you is kind of like, wait, where did this come from? How am I suddenly ready to do these things? Why wasn't I ready a year ago or something like that? And it's like, well, it's because you were still building and working and on your self-confidence, and there were some things that were happening perhaps in the background subtly for you in your subconscious that were shifting that just reached that, again, tipping point, which is very exciting. I feel like this is a very exciting time for you because like things are speeding up in part maybe because things in your life around you are speeding up, but I feel like things are also speeding up because you are subconsciously or consciously just more confident. And so you're just making choices faster. You're making decisions faster. You're making decisions that will speed up your life in a certain way. You're more confident when you move through the world. You're feeling ready for opportunities that you weren't ready for before. And that is what is actually causing this effect in your life of things speeding up. So I also got lots of quotes in this reading today, but I love quotes. I also got some quote cards for you. So this first one, I asked specifically where this is leading for you. And when I got this card, honestly, with all these arrows pointing in different directions, like all these colorful arrows, it's leading in so many different directions. First of all, there's so many different people here. So where it's leading for you is very individual and specific. And there's an element of there's an unexpected nature to it, of course. That's kind of natural, that's kind of life. But I also got the sense of, where is it leading for you? There's so many different directions it could go in. And I feel like that could be an intimidating thing for you to realize on some level, because it could be overwhelming, I feel, because you realize in some sense, the world is your oyster and there's so many different ways that things can go. And there could be an impulse to feel like, well, what's the right path? I want to make the right decision. Is this going to be the right choice for me? Is there a right choice or a wrong choice? And honestly, looking at this card, I don't feel like there is a right choice or a wrong choice. It's not really about where you're going and specifically what you're doing. It's more about where you're at in your internal mental and emotional state, because that is what's going to feel right or wrong to you. Like, your path is going to align no matter what you're doing, as long as you are aligned. It's really that simple. And this isn't anything new. I feel like if you've been in any spaces, especially like manifestation related communities, but any other like readers and things like that, you're familiar with this way of relating to the world and the universe, wherein you're, like the idea that you have a point of attraction, or you have a vibration, you have a way of thinking about things that shifts your reality into whatever you want it to be. And there's this idea that, like, as long as your mindset is aligned, like, you could be doing anything and be aligned with it and be happy, because you and yourself are just like, you're aligned with yourself. You're not in confusion or debate about who you are and what you want to be. And that's what I feel like is really happening, is that you're coming together in yourself so much that it's almost like you are in the right space mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So whatever you're doing is then therefore aligned, because you can't not be aligned, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So yes, there are so many different directions that you can go, and there are so many different paths that you can take, but ultimately, because you are reaching this level of alignment with yourself, you're so confident. Like, no path is going to shake your confidence to the degree that you're going to feel like this is the wrong path. I mean, that doesn't mean that you'll never question yourself again, or that you'll never have moments, and maybe you won't. But it's also to say that even when you do have those moments, if you do have those moments where you question yourself and your path, or you're not sure if you're in the right place, you have the tools and the skills to bring yourself back to the place you want to be, to your confidence, your self-worth, and alignment again. Let me read this quote on the back as well. So the quote says, "Every intelligent individual wants to know what makes him tick, and yet is at once frustrated and fascinated by the fact that oneself is the most difficult of all things to know." And I don't know why I put thinks here, but it made me think of actually the song "Oh, the Things You Can Think" from Seussical the Musical. Specifically, the lyric that's coming to me right now is, "Oh, the things you can think and wonder and dream, far and wide as you dare." And so there's definitely, like, you are definitely a thinker. You're definitely someone with a lot of ideas. And I also feel like there's this element where I feel like you are coming into a new understanding of yourself where you do understand yourself, but it's not as much in terms of language or like a mental understanding. It's more of like a spiritual, like, knowing of yourself. You understand yourself, but you can't necessarily explain it to anyone, not in a way that you can explain, but in a way you can feel. And so, yeah, I feel like you're putting less emphasis on thoughts and more emphasis on feeling, in a way that, like, you're letting your feeling lead, and then your thoughts, like, can work together with that feeling. If that makes sense. Does that make sense? It's like you can sense your true self. You can sense what really aligns with you. You can sense who you really are. But it's such a thing that cannot be explained or described by your mind. You're instead of, you know how, like, if you say you're asked to introduce yourself, what are some of the things that you would say about yourself, right? You might describe yourself as the career that you do, or the age that you are, your name, your favorite color, the kinds of movies you like to watch. Things that are very surface level and might be very important to you, especially at certain stages of your life. But they don't actually really tell you who you are. You might also get into adjectives. Well, I can be really type A. I'm really smart. I'm really introverted. I don't know. But again, those aren't really who you are, and those are just identities that you can take on and discard at will. And while sometimes, like, our likes and dislikes can feel very firm and cemented, they're really not. They're choices that we make. You can always make a different choice. You can say, I don't like this one day, and then you can like it the next day. And for some people, it's easier, perhaps, to switch up their likes and dislikes and shift identities. And for some people, it might be harder. But at the end of the day, it is ultimately a choice. And I feel like you are no longer holding so tightly to things that once seemed to define you, especially when we were talking earlier about releasing some of your attachment to the past. You might have defined yourself by some of the things that had limited you in the past, perhaps things that really impacted you in your life that set you on a path where you were dealing with some patterns and behaviors that just felt negative or were holding you back at a certain point. And again, you are releasing your identification with your experiences, with your likes, with your dislikes, with things that are a bit more surface level, because at the end of the day, you always know how to return to your sense of self. That is a feeling. It's not a thought. It's not a word. It's not, I like this and I don't like that, because those, again, are not really who you are. They're not really who anyone is. They're things that can feel deeply important to us at different times in our lives, but ultimately can change. They're malleable. You are learning to sense your true self, the thing that is not changeable when everything else about you is. And it's also something that's truer and more authentic to your spiritual self, essentially. And connecting with that is what's really giving you the sense of self-worth, because that part of you has no concept of lacking self-worth in the first place, you know? There's no, I like this about myself and I don't like that about myself, because you don't even really ascribe any specific positive or negative trait to yourself. And if you do choose to ascribe a trait to yourself, you're more likely to align with the positive or with the things that can be more constructive to you. You can be honest about a moment when you weren't happy with what you did or how you felt about yourself, but you use that in a constructive way rather than a way where you identify with it, right? You're not identifying with things that are a little bit, honestly, less material to who you truly are, who you really know yourself to be, which is very cool. So then I asked just for any additional messages or advice. So we got this card here. And I feel like this really speaks to a surprise, the unboxing of some kind of knowledge of yourself. I'm really getting the sense, actually, from these final 3 cards, that if you haven't had a very, like, almost deeply spiritual experience already, where you've maybe had, like, some kind of out-of-body experience or something that connected you with your spiritual self more, or just like a deep meditation, some kind of experience like that is on its way to you, that's going to open up your world in a new way. But I also feel like in general your world has already opened up for you in a new way. Like I said, there's all these different paths available to you, different ways, like, because you don't identify with certain things in your life anymore as being your true self, there are more possibilities open to you, because you're not married to being any one type of person, and you're not thinking of yourself through a certain lens. So you're like, yeah, I could try out this. Yeah, I could be this person. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with, doing something different today than I did yesterday. Like, you're just much more chill about those kinds of things. So this quote says, "If we are open only to discoveries which will accord with what we know already, we may as well stay shut," from Alan Watts. The Wisdom of Insecurity. So 2 Alan Watts quotes here. Yeah, and exactly what I was saying. You are less identified with things that once gave you meaning, but now you don't need that meaning as much, because you, again, are connected with your own self, but you use meaning more deliberately, I feel. Like, you know that meaning is not set in stone and that you make it, so you are continually constructing and reconstructing meaning according to what feels most constructive in each and every given moment, which is so powerful. Again, you're like, the Magician card didn't come out, but you're like the magician. You're much more able to manipulate, and in a positive way, like work with the vibrations, the energies, the matter that's in front of you, and create something. This is just such an empowering message, and a group that's really stepping into so much empowerment right now. We have this card here which says, "The meeting of 2 personalities is like the contact of 2 chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed," from The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. So your relationship with other people is also transforming, and I feel like in your empowerment, you are starting to see interactions with other people, whether they feel more positive or negative to you. You're not even defining things as much in terms of positive or negative, but more you're seeing you're creating your own meaning around certain interactions and things like that, and you're seeing how every interaction that you have with another human being can be something really fascinating and constructive and transformational for you. And I feel like you're stepping into an era where more and more of your interactions are going to feel just helpful in some way, even ones where there might be some tension or misunderstanding. Like, I feel like you're feeling so solid in yourself, you're not going to be shaken by this. You're just going to be fascinated by how even the smallest interaction can really shift something within you and within the other person, but mostly within you, because you have your perspective. Your perspective is the one that you have most access to, and in a positive way, and how you can construct your world so that it always shifts in a positive way for you. I just feel like there's so much momentum you have so much momentum going for you in the direction of, like, more self-love and just, like, I don't know, inner peace. There's a real sense of inner peace with this group that is coming online, and it's very, I just feel like such a weight has been lifted for you. And then we have this card here, Death, in pink, with smiley faces and everything. And it says, "Death is the unknown in which all of us lived before birth," also from Alan Watts. So lots of Alan Watts quotes here. Perhaps you want to read one of his books or look into more about his philosophy, the way he talked about things. Also The Artist's Way as well. That could be helpful for you at this time, especially putting things into action more and being more confident in your creations. The Artist's Way can be really helpful for that. Being a learner, I feel like you may have already read a lot of the books here and explored a lot of these paths, but also if you haven't, I could see you being very into any of these books or authors or paths. So I can see you definitely eagerly taking them on. But I also sense that you're at this stage where you're taking more action and you're less focused on learning everything in sight, because you're learning through action now. You're learning through experience now, not just courses, classes, books, watching other people, right? And so there's also that element to it, you know? And that's why The Artist's Way might really resonate right now, because it's a very action-oriented group. You're reading the book and then you're also completing projects and things like that, and living and shifting how you live your life. So that could really, really speak to you right now. But let me get to this. Death is the unknown in which all of us lived before birth. Yeah, I feel like this is really reaffirming this idea that you are connecting to something, to the part of yourself that's so much deeper and more ancient and more connected with like all that is, that you're just rising above a lot of the more petty or like surface level identifications you once had with yourself. And so it can be, again, very disorienting, because there are certain identities you're leaving behind that you may have once been very attached to. And there could be ways in which you are uncertain in how to interact with others or how to define yourself, because your defaults just aren't really working for you anymore. And so that lends itself to the idea that you're in a bit of an in-between phase, but you'll get more comfortable with it as you go. You are already locked in, I feel like, to this path, to this understanding, to this increased understanding of yourself. And when you're tapping into, like, when you're tapping into your true self, as I said before, you're tapping into a part of you that is just you know, just has always existed and always will exist in a sense. And that is like tapping into who you were before you were born, who you will be after you die, like who you always will be, whether you believe that you have a soul or you believe, I mean, I suppose if you're here and you're listening to this and this is resonating, you probably believe in something. You probably believe in existence beyond the existence that you have as a human being right now. But that indefinable unknowableness that we all sort of are, you know, whether you believe that you have an individual soul that experiences all different kinds of lifetimes, or you believe that you're an offshoot of like a main source, or there's some level of your consciousness is not necessarily just you, but is something that exists beyond the you that you're experiencing right now. You know what I mean? You're tapping into that, and that is you. That is always you. Always has been, always will be. And so it's hard not to feel confident when you are tapped into that part of yourself, because that part of yourself is truly indestructible and unconcerned with the sort of smaller worries of human day-to-day life. And while part of living this life is to experience all the ups and the downs and the contrasts and the little things that might be considered a little bit more petty, or the smaller identities that we might take on from time to time, like you can still engage with all of that and have fun with all of that, but I feel like you take it a little bit less seriously. You're a little bit less entrenched in the game, so to speak, in the role that you're playing here. So again, you find it easier to take on different roles than you had in the past. It's just you're getting comfortable with the idea of yourself as like, oh, I'm here to play, like I'm here to experience, I'm here to try on different hats, and to also experience the personality that I've come in with, but also understand how that personality can change and evolve as my wants and desires as a higher being, for example, change and evolve. And you're just feeling so much freer. There's a freedom here. There's a freedom, there's a confidence, there's a sureness that comes from, again, tapping into this greater part of you that always feels that way, because that part of you knows its place in the universe, knows who it is, doesn't need words to explain it, doesn't need to describe it, it just is. And it's allowing you to just be, to take things a little bit less more seriously, and to be whoever you want to be in any given moment, because it feels right, and you don't need any justification other than that. Which is really powerful. I hope that you feel the power of this, like, reading coming through, because honestly for me, like, I don't even know if anything I've said fully conveys the energy, but I also feel like it's something that you kind of have to feel, just like your true authentic self is something that you kind of have to feel and tap into and believe in. It's like that's the energy that's coming through, so I hope you're feeling it. So we're gonna close out this reading with just the last card here, I'm just going to pull... Ooh, they're stuck in the box. All right, I'm just going to pull a Law of Attraction card that I haven't... Honestly, I've never used on this channel before, but they're my mom's, and I just happened to take them out the other day for a reading that I did, and I was like, oh, these might be useful. And some of the messages that we're talking about today, like, I know some people aren't really enamored with the law of attraction itself, but I feel like there's wisdom in every kind of teaching, whether you fully resonate with it or not. So, like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And that's how I like to live my life. So let's see. What last advice do you have for this collective of people to help them continue on this path of self-love? Is there any closing message here for this collective from this deck, please? What closing message do we have? Okay, we have 2. Oh, I got this one the other day. All right, so we have, I let my action be action in joy, and by segment intending, I can expand my time. Let's read this one first on the back. So, by segment intending, I can expand my time. Well, there's definitely a sense of expansion in this reading, but let's see. As you become efficient with your segment intending, you will expand your usable time. By being clear about what you want during each important segment of your day, you will harness the law of attraction to do its work, and it will require far less time for you to accomplish much, much more. Okay, so I believe, and maybe if you're familiar with the teachings of the law of attraction, like already what segment intending is, but the impression I'm getting is that segment intending, and I feel like I read this a while back as well, is setting an intention for each part of your day. So you are more focused on one particular goal, one particular feeling, experience, and it allows you to more easily embody that, so that you actually manifest more efficiently, you get more done, you embody more efficiently that which you're looking to embody. So instead of setting an intention for the whole day, maybe you set an intention for your morning, and then you set an intention for your midday, you set an intention for your evening. If that's not exactly how it goes, if someone wants to add it in the comments, their experience with segment intending and what it is, definitely feel free to do so. Also, if you read The Teachings of Abraham by Esther and Jerry Hicks, which this Law of Attraction card deck is associated with, you might get a better feel for it. Now, as I said, I know some people have kind of like moved on from the Law of Attraction as like their way of engaging spiritually and what have you, but as I said, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. This tool is coming through for a reason, and it could be potentially very helpful for you, especially when this makes a lot of sense when it comes to you putting more of your plans into action. It's less overwhelming to set an intention for a whole span of time and to try to make that work than it is to just say, okay, well, what is my intention for this morning? What is my intention for right now? What is my intention for right now? What is my intention for... And just go with that and see where that gets you, because each and every moment you're tapping into the present and the future by recognizing how what you create in your present becomes your future, and the momentum builds over time. So like you're really tapping into the connection between the present and the future. And so being more focused on what is my intention in the present will snowball into the future that you want, and so you can take it one step at a time, really. Like that's what I'm feeling, is make this less overwhelming for yourself, especially if you're just tapping into becoming more active, really doing things, putting things into practice. If it feels a little overwhelming at first, just take it one step at a time, one part of the day at a time, whatever pace feels right to you, and recognize that the purer you are with your intention in each moment, it will lead you to the next perfect intention naturally. You don't have to figure everything out ahead of time. Yes, this is really about being present. And then I let my action be action in joy. Yes, action. There's a lot of like expansive energy. There's a lot of like flying, soaring kind of energy. And you have intended action. Action is part of the deliciousness of your physical world, but you did not intend to create through physical bodily action. You intended to use your body to enjoy the actions that you have created through your thought. Yes, so this can be your first intention, the intention to enjoy whatever action you're taking, the intention to use your body to enjoy actions that you've created through your thought, actions that come to you through the intentions that come to you as well. And I feel like this is just encouraging you to, especially if you're someone who taking action on your dreams, taking action on your goals, taking action on the learning that you've accrued feels intimidating or overwhelming at times. Breaking it down into smaller bits and pieces and focusing on one thing at a time and focusing on how much you can enjoy just that one task at a time without getting ahead of yourself, without thinking, okay, I have to do this and then I have to do this and then I have to do this, and trying to, that's where you get overwhelmed. You are much more productive when you're focused on just what's right in front of you and just how much you can enjoy what's right in front of you. And also creating more and more space in your life for the things that bring you the most joy in whatever given moment you're in, And so sometimes those actions that are most aligned with joy will seem directly related to a specific goal. Sometimes they might not. And then other times you might be able to cultivate a sense of joy in something that you were having trouble feeling joy about, because perhaps your lack of joy in the action you're taking comes from this feeling of overwhelm, this feeling of not being very present. But when you take the time to get into the very present moment and set your intention clearly, things become more enjoyable, the action moves much more easily, and you find yourself enjoying something that you were once sure that you wouldn't enjoy. So yes, that's going to make it a lot easier for you to step into this new phase where you're confident, you're experiencing, you're doing, you're putting it into practice, you are putting your money where your mouth is, you're putting your words to your actions to your words, whatever. Does that make sense? and you're just being who you want to be. You're being the change you want to see in the world. You're being the change you want to see in your life. You're much more focused on now and what's coming next, as opposed to what was. And it's very exciting. There's so much power here. There's so much intention here. I feel like you are someone who would benefit from having a journal, like a daily journal where you set your intentions in the morning, or you wake up in the morning and you set your intention for the day, or you set your intention for the morning and you check in with yourself throughout the day. And I feel like that's something that will become natural for you. It's not something that you'll have to force for very long, but it's something that can get you started on this journey. And especially if you're watching this around the time it's being uploaded, which is close to the new year, specifically 2025 into 2026, although this is a timeless reading, then you might find this is a useful, New Year's resolution in a sense. But you can see this as a New Year's resolution no matter what time of year you're at. And I know resolutions sometimes get a bad rep because people find that they don't often stick to them, but I actually find that the less militant you are with yourself about a resolution, the more likely it is to actually come to fruition, as long as you give yourself time and space to breathe and take your time with whatever it is. Treat it as a real new permanent part of your life that needs time to cement, and therefore you don't have to dive in immediately. You can really build up to it, build up that energy, and you can start that before the new year even comes in to really cement it even further. And I feel like no matter where you're at when you're listening to this, no matter what it is you're implementing in your life, whatever actions you're meaning to take, whatever person that you're meaning to become, you are taking your time with it, and that is going to actually speed things up. Yeah, and you've already been doing that. So you're continuing to do that, but it's just going to continue to speed up because it's that consistency. It's that continuing to show up day after day, no matter what, continuing to show up again, even if you feel like you fell off the horse a little bit because you didn't really, maybe you just needed a little break, but you still came back to it. So, yeah. This is very powerful. You are stepping into a really powerful era of your life. I'm very happy for you. I really enjoyed this reading. I really enjoyed this energy. So please let me know in the comments how you resonated with this, if there's anything specific in your life that you feel this related to, or if it's more of a general sort of feeling in your life that you feel like things are really, you're becoming much more sure of yourself. Whatever it is, I'd love to hear more about it in the comments. Also subscribe, notification bell, do all the things if you would like to. And as I mentioned in the beginning, if you're interested in a personal reading, we do offer those on our website, sunflowerphilosophy.com. So the link for that is in the description. And then my mom and I are also certified consulting hypnotists. So if you are interested in hypnosis, in what that can offer for you as a tool to help you really feel confident and help you align with the things that you want to do in your life, then check that out as well. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful life, and I will see you in another reading again sometime very soon. Bye!